Roll call for conference disclosures today. We'll start with a roll call of members present.
Oh, one moment, let me make sure the meeting started properly.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Excellent.
I
My
believe
apologies.
now we are live. So now we will officially call the meeting to order and begin with a roll call of members present.
All right, City of Petaluma, Janice Cater Thompson.
Here.
County of Sonoma, Director Corsi. Here. City of Cotati, Director Harvey. Here. City of Rohnert Park, Director Giudice. Present. City of Sebastopol, Director Hinton.
Here.
City of Healdsburg, Vice Chair Kelly.
Here.
And City of Cloverdale, Todd Lance is informed us he would be out. Town of Windsor, Director Leap.
Here.
City of Sonoma, Director Lowe.
Sandra?
Yeah. Sorry. City of Santa Rosa, Director Okrepke. And County of Sonoma, Director Rabbit.
Here.
And County of Sonoma, Chair Hopkins.
Present. All right, we do have a quorum and we can move forward. That will take us to public comment on items not on the regular agenda. And so I do just want to note for members of the public a change to protocol because Drew Nichols is no longer our clerk. Ross kindly has stepped forward to be the person who receives comments. So if you do want to send an email before noon the day of the meeting, you would include public comment in the subject line of the email, limit it to 300 words, and that would now go to ross.clendenin@scta.ca.gov. And that is part of the agenda, but I did want to state that for the record as well. So with that, do we have anyone who wishes to comment on matters not on the agenda? Seeing none, do we have anyone online?
No, Madam Chair, we do not.
Great. With that, we will move on to the consent calendar. Do any of my colleagues wish to pull any items from the consent calendar today? Seeing none, I will ask if any members of the public wish to comment on the consent calendar, which is items 4.1 through 4.6. Seeing no one rise in person, are there any pre-submitted comments or comments online? Not
Do not see
seeing
any.
any. With that, I will bring it back to my colleagues for any questions, comments, or a motion.
Move to approve the consent calendar.
All right.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Because everyone is in person, we can go ahead and take a voice vote. So all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that does carry unanimously. And with that, we will go ahead and move on to our regular calendar. We are going to change the order up a bit because I understand that our Caltrans partners are only available sort of early in the meeting. So we will actually be taking SCTA item 5.4 first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Dave Ripta, Director of Projects and Programming at SCTA RCPA. I'd like to thank our partners online, Bang from Caltrans, Joe Rouse from Caltrans, Kevin Chen from MDC, and also our project manager, Connie Premier, who's been leading this effort amongst Sonoma and Marin counties. So I'd like to talk to you again about the Highway 101, the US 101 Marin Sonoma Narrows project that we've been talking about for the last few months, and also the HOV hours of operations in the corridor. As the board heard previously in December, we have been looking at updating these hours over the last few years, and now we are coming to you with a decision point that has been made. Just to kind of give you a background on the presentation, we're going to first give you a broader overview on managed lanes in general, along with an update on the status of the Marin Sonoma Narrows project, and then talking about the HOV hours of operations update. Just to give you a background on managed lanes adjust congestion on the highway by controlling traffic movement on the highway. Two of the ways you can do that normally are based on making it so only certain vehicles are eligible to use the lane, such as people using carpools. You can even restrict that further by the number of people in that carpool, whether it's 2 or more people or 3 more people, or you can do it by limiting the way people can access the facility. So carpool lanes or HOV lanes or high occupancy vehicle lanes are also known as carpool lanes. They promote and encourage ride sharing to alleviate congestion on the highway system and maximize the person carrying capacity of our highway facilities. Since we do not have the ability to widen our highways, we have to be able to be sure to use our facilities the best we can. Express lanes or high occupancy toll lanes or hot lanes are also another way you can manage the congestion. It's similar to an HOV lane, but also gives an option for people to choose to pay a toll to enter the facility and to be used that capacity to be able to arrive at their destination faster. Express lanes use congestion pricing, and they use that pricing and also occupancy restrictions and access restrictions to maximize corridor efficiency and person throughput. There are some existing toll discount programs here in the Bay Area. MTC offers their Express Lane Start program that gives a 50% discount on tolls for families with incomes up to 200% of the federal poverty level, which in our region is very low. A family of four with a maximum income of 60,000 is really not a great standard. And so MTC's on other corridors such as Highway 37 has been looking at other criteria to use that could potentially expand that eligibility and enrollment for discount programs. Also on Highway 37, they've been looking at potential transit stipends and other forms of discounts to incentivize people to carpool or use transit in corridors. Just a note as well, there are some vehicles that can use the carpool lanes, even if you're not a carpool. That's through the Clean Air Decal program. That is allowed under state and federal law. The state law that allows that has been extended to September 30th of 2027. However, the federal authorization is going to expire September 30th of this year unless Congress decides to extend that further. But without the Clean Air Vehicle program, drivers that would normally be driving the carpooling with their electric vehicle will have to use the general purpose lanes, and that will increase congestion for those lanes, while also making it so that people that are in the carpool lane can use that lane without as many single occupancy vehicle cars using that lane. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but it will help improve efficiency of the carpool lanes in the future. Just to give you a little background on the hours in the entire Bay Area, I know it's very small to read, but in the green at the top, those are all the express lane facilities that are maintained by either the Bay Area Toll Authority or through the Alameda County Transportation Commission or the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. Those facilities are generally operated between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m. at night. And also there are other facilities in the Bay Area that have longer HOV hours than Sonoma and Marin County, which are close to the bottom and very limited hours in the corridor. Just to give you an update on the Marin Sonoma Narrows, as those of you may recall, it's a 17-mile corridor from Highway 37 to Corona Road in Petaluma. They include a number of sub-projects over the years. And once the last HOV lane project, the Marin Sonoma Narrows segment B7 project, is completed this summer, that'll complete the 52 miles of HOV lanes between Richardson Bay and Sausalito to Windsor. That is the second longest HOV lane in the entire state. Construction on the gap in Marin Sonoma Narrows began in 2011, and the construction, will, as I mentioned, will be complete this summer. Just to give you an update on the Marin Sonoma Narrows B7 project, the completion of the stage 3, which will include the traffic shift, the northbound lanes, will occur in May. The last stage of the project will do the final center median barrier, paving, striping, and signage. And the project will be completed hopefully in August or September of this year, depending on weather and construction progress. As the board heard back in December, we have been partnering with a number of agencies to look at the HOV hours in the corridor. This includes the Transportation Authority Marin, MTC, Caltrans, Highway Patrol, Golden Gate Bridge and Highway Transportation District, and also Marin Transit. These are all of the key players in the corridor when it comes to either the operators of the facilities or the agencies are responsible for transportation planning or operating transit service in the corridor. We have completed a technical analysis that looked at the corridor. We had a couple of different options for potential expanded HOV hours. The first being consistent with the Bay Area Toll Authority bridges, which would be 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The other option that was looked at had more impacts. It was more of an express lane type facility where you'd have carpool lanes in effect all the way from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. Both of the scenarios would relieve congestion in the corridor, especially once the completion of the MSN project is done. And there are some localized impacts, however, mostly in Marin County, but some in Sonoma County. Overall, both scenarios would provide better user experience for the HOV lanes and less congestion. However, the longer scenario 2, was rejected as it would create more impacts in the midday period when there's not as much actual congestion on the corridor. Reasons why we're looking at this change, the Marin Sonoma Narrows environmental impact report committed us to expand and consolidate hours for HOV on US 1 and Marin Sonoma counties. And that included making it so that there was two-way HOV hours for Marin County, since it's currently one-way. And also supports our climate goals to encourage mode shift to carpooling and using transit. This will have result in increasing person throughput by 2% in the peak direction and between 3 and 6% in the non-peak direction. And it will be consistent with HOV facilities across the region, including the Bata facilities, which have, as I mentioned earlier, the HOV tolling from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 3 to 7 p.m. And be similar to the hours of the Golden Gate Bridge, which is only in the southbound direction from 5 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. So just to give you a sense of where we're at, last Thursday, the Managed Lanes Committee, which is composed of Caltrans, MTC, and Highway Patrol, met and discussed the two scenarios. And they determined to move forward the first scenario, which is the 5 to 10 a.m. and 3 to 7 p.m. scenario. This would be in both Sonoma and Marin counties. So this would include longer hours of operations, expand operations in Marin County, and now there'll be two-way HOV hours instead of just one way in the morning and one way in the afternoon. And that would remain as a requirement of HOV 2+, so having 2 or more people in the car. There would be no increase in the occupancy requirements. We've been working closely the last few months with our public information officer team, including Ross. We're in Transportation Authority Marin, MTC, and Caltrans to develop messaging and to develop a public relations campaign as this change gets rolled out over the next few months. As we move forward, those changes in the HOV hours are going to lead to some impacts, and there may be some public pushback. Not as much in Sonoma County, but definitely more in Marin County as people have to get used to this change. It's going to have a big impact on their daily lives, and there are less alternate routes for them to be able to use in the corridor. Those HOV hours also may have impacts where people are going to say, well, it's not congested. Why can't I use the HOV lane? And that's really to look at the bookends of the period right before the congestion, right after the congestion, so that we can get traffic cleared out before and after. There's a lot of standputs. So the existing congestion period right now is 6:15 a.m. to about 9:45 a.m. and about 2 p.m. to 6:45 p.m. That's about roughly around the 5 to 10 and 3 to 7 period we're setting the hours to. There will also be additional enforcement that will be needed by the CHP in Marin County. That's the new off-peak direction. They're going to have to start enforcing down there, and also a longer period of enforcement they're going to have to need to do. CHP is aware of this, and they took a neutral position on extending the hours, as they do not want to have any influence on actual setting the hours. They defer to the transportation agencies to set that. On Marin County side, they are a little bit more resistant to the change, and they had actually asked Caltrans to go with the lesser hours of 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and 3 to 6:30. However, MTC and Caltrans did not wish to move forward that time. And they committed, however, to working with TAM to do some additional ramp metering in Marin County to help deal with some of the peak congestion on the northbound side, and also look at implementing corridor adaptive ramp meter in the future, which is synchronizing the ramps between different interchanges so they all work together. Caltrans is committed to working with us, TAM, and the other project partners to monitor congestions in the corridor and making sure there's no congestion or safety issues going forward. And if there is, then we look at visiting the hours in the future. At this point, staff recommends to the board that you adopt 2 different resolutions. As mentioned in the staff report, there's funding that is needed to implement the changes to the HOV hours in the corridor. That will include changing the HOV signs in Sonoma County to include new stickers with the hours, and in Marin County actually replacing the physical signs themselves. Those 2 district director's orders with Caltrans will require about $1 million in funding from Regional Measure 3 to implement. So we're asking you to adopt 2 resolutions approving allocation requests of those funds. And related to that, we also request that you authorize the executive director to negotiate and enter into 2 cooperative agreements with Caltrans to implement those hours. As I mentioned, we do have our project partners from Caltrans and MTC online if you have any technical questions. And with that, Madam Chair, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from my colleagues? Director Rabbit?
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate it. And I think you said this in there, but I just wanted to hear it again in terms of how you define congestion in order to come up with the hours. And you said something about the bookends, but I'm not quite sure if I hear that. I would imagine that in my world, it would be about free flow traffic in the, you know, right-hand lanes as opposed to HOV. Can you explain there if there's any rhyme or reason to how you come up with that?
Sure. I'll defer to my colleagues, Joe Rouse and Kevin Shenton, if they're online available to chime in, but those are really looking at kind of the bookend periods right before the congestion and right after to be able to get that traffic flowed out.
Hi, David. This is Kevin Chen with MTC. I'm happy to chime in first, and Joe, please do as well if I miss anything. But I think in general, we are looking at freeway speeds once they dip below 45 miles per hour. Caltrans does have a degradation report that they publish every year. So when the HOV lane speed travels below that 45 miles per hour, the HOV lane becomes degraded. In terms of freeway operations in general, once the freeway speed dips below 35, so let's say somewhere between the 35 to 45 miles per hour is what we call a bottleneck. And that's when you start seeing congestion, and then you see queues build up on the freeways. So those are some of the freeway speeds that we use in general to monitor congestion. Joe, anything you want to add?
I would just add that it is really the overall general purpose lane performance and the congestion general purpose that we look at when we're saying the. So I think try to come up with that period before and after as well. We want to try to start getting the HOV lane into operation before congestion really hits that peak. Not a perfect science. We have to kind of balance that along with the other issues of trying to ensure regional consistency. We do find historically that it's less confusing for drivers if they know when the HOV lanes are going to be in operation, regardless of what corridor they drive on. And I say that coming into this position with 17 years of experience as the statewide lead for managed lane operations. So I'm very well versed in our overall statewide practices.
Great, thank you very much. If I may, on enforcement, and Kevin, I know that we've had, former Commissioner Spearing was keen on enforcement in the East Bay on HOV lanes, but can you talk about who actually pays for that enforcement, how it's funded, and whether or not MTC adds to that mix? Because I know that some of the conversations I believe in the past with CHP had to do with the ability to have additional officers on the freeways. Yeah,
I can certainly chime in on what I'm aware of. As far as I know, I think MTC is really the BAFA, which is the operator for the Express Lanes program that MTC leads. So for the Express Lanes, the agency does use a portion of the toll funds generated from those Express Lanes corridors, such as the A80 corridor in Alameda County, the 101 corridor in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties and so forth, and the Contra Costa 680 corridor that has express lanes on it, because there's toll funds collected. So some of those toll funds were used to help pay for CHP enforcement. So basically, if you think of it as like a whole package, right? There's some funding that's needed to pay for CHP to make sure that the lanes are operating as intended. My understanding is that we do not have dedicated funding for CHP enforcement on regular HOV facility. Maybe that's more of a state arrangement. Not sure if Caltrans have a role in this.
Sure, Kevin. I can add more to that. Yes. The HOV lane occupancy enforcement, it is CHP. There is no dedicated funding from Caltrans. However, for this corridor, we intend to have further discussion with HOV, CHP on how we can help have them get the enhanced enforcement for the corridor.
Great, thank you very much. And one last one, if I may. The RM3 funds, and maybe this is to our executive director, or the RM3 funds that are going to be allocated for this, are those Sonoma County specific RM3 funds that would have been used for something else? And if they would have been used for something else, what would that have been? Or what category are they in? Just so I understand.
Yeah, let me give a little background on the RM3 funding for Marin-Sonoma Narrows. So there's a total of $120 million that was allocated to be used in either Marin or Sonoma County. There was no formal, like, the dollars shall be spent in one county or the other. As part of those negotiations moving forward, Transportation Authority in Marin was primarily widening northbound and not widening southbound. So to incentivize Transportation Authority, Marin, and Caltrans to complete the widening southbound as well, the split of those funds was 90 million, 30 million. And so 90 million would go to Transportation Authority of Marin's discretionary funding, and 30 million would go to the Sonoma County Transportation Authority. Of those $30 million that goes to this board's discretionary authority, we've dedicated approximately $10 million to landscaping work in the area of the Marin-Sonoma Narrows. And we have close to $20 million remaining. This $1 million for signs in both counties would come out of that $1 million Sonoma County pot as part of, delivering the entire Marin-Sonoma Narrows. Transportation Authority of Marin has fully expended their funds and does not have capacity to fund this. Caltrans did not have capacity to fund this, and this was a recommendation from staff to fund it out of our share. Moving forward, that gives us approximately $19 million. There's a few different projects that could go to. Some of the projects could be the replacement of the bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing there near Target in the old Kenilworth School in Petaluma. It could also go to a new bridge at the county line on San Antonio Road if we wanted to be part of that project. What we would like to see that staff will likely be recommending to this board, if MTC is willing, is the pedestrian improvements on Corona, that it's a higher priority for Petaluma to be recommended, but this comes down to the definition of what the Marin-Sonoma Narrows includes, right? The Marin-Sonoma Narrows is a carpool lane that goes from north of Corona Road overcrossing south to State Route 37. The initial environmental document did environmentally clear the pedestrian overcrossing near the target. It did not clear the pedestrian work at Corona. So it's a stretch to use those funds in that direction, but we have been trying to eye that based on the Highway 101 corridor access over 101 corridor study that Measure M funded. So in Petaluma, that's ongoing right now.
That's great information. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank you, Kevin, and our Caltrans rep, and David, thank you.
Director Lowe, had you raised your hand previously? No, okay. Other questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I will see if there are any members of the public no, just a stretch, okay. I'm just making sure I don't cut anybody off. I'm hypersensitive here. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item in person? Seeing none, do we have any members who wish to comment online?
We do not, Madam Chair.
All right. With that, this is listed as an action item, so I believe it's just to sort of receive that presentation. Is that what we'd like to do? Okay, so do we have a motion for that?
There is some cooperative agreements that need the approval, but the information of the hours is information only.
Okay, great. Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second. Second was Director Hader Thompson. And with that, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that does carry unanimously. Thank you so much, David. Appreciate it. And thank you to our subject matter experts for appearing virtually as well. With that, we'll go ahead and revert back to the original regular calendar item. And so we will have Dana Teray presenting on the coordinated claim for transit funding for 2025-2026, which will also be an action item for consideration of approval.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Hello, directors. Today, this item is regarding the fiscal year 25-26 coordinated claim. I am just going to recap the purpose of the coordinated claim, as well as the formula review and revision process, changes from previous years, go through each of the three funding sources included and talk about the recommendation.
It's okay for just a second.
Okay.
Yes.
Great, now you should be good to go.
Thank you. All right, so in Sonoma County, we have three local bus agencies, a regional bus agency and a regional rail agency. And because there's multiple operators, MTC requires that an annual coordinated claim be prepared to document the fund distribution for each transit agency for certain state funding sources. These are the primary funding sources for operating revenue for local bus transit in Sonoma County. And so the funding in the coordinated claim is based on the latest fund estimates prepared by MTC and the county auditor's office. And it documents the distribution of state funding to transit agencies. It also documents interjurisdictional funding agreements between the transit agencies, such as support for the Santa Rosa Transit Mall operations and support for Sonoma County Transit Routes 44 and 48. And it informs the funding allocations from MTC to transit operators. So this year's funding and this year's coordinated claim and the formulas takes a very different approach than it has in the past. And this has been some time in the making. So recognizing that Golden Gate Transit service had changed over the years and had been decreasing since 2017 and then more substantially after COVID. In 2023, this board gave staff direction to study the Transportation Development Act or TDA funding in the coordinated claim, and specifically the 25% that was dedicated to Golden Gate Transit based on an agreement from 1996. So shortly after that, Golden Gate Transit launched a strategic plan focused on financial and operational commitments. And that sparked a regional kind of recognition and coming together of the transit agencies in Marin and Sonoma County, recognizing a need to do more coordinated planning for transit along the Highway 101 corridor. So that launched the Marin Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service Analysis, also known as MASCOTS, to study that service along Highway 101. And with that effort, we established a finance subcommittee to review the cost of services, various fund sources and distributions, and really kind of do a more in-depth look at that TDA distribution. And through these efforts and consultation with the transit ad hoc, as well as with MTC, a new formula was developed for the coordinated claim. And I'll just go through some of those changes. In prior years, the coordinated claim really focused on two state funding sources that there's discretion over by SCTA, and that's the Transportation Development Act and the State Transit Assistance County Block Grant portion. And this year's coordinated claim brings in the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, or LCTOP, population-based funds, which was formerly distributed just to the three local bus operators kind of outside of the coordinated claim process. These three fund sources and the formulas are modeled after the formula that is used in Marin County, who also shares the same regional operators as we do in Sonoma County. And it is a dynamic formula that is, I'll go into more detail about in a moment, but will fluctuate with the amount of service that's out there and the amount of ridership there is. So in terms of kind of policies and agreements, the previous coordinated claim used that 1996 agreement for the TDA funding, distributing 25% to Golden Gate Transit. We also had adopted a formula for the STA County Block Grant program back in 2019. Last year, we extended that for an additional year. So this kind of regroups the STA funds as well. And what we're looking at today, we are recommending as a one-year solution. And we are continuing discussions on an ongoing formula as we speak, and intend to have that ongoing formula worked out by the end of this calendar year. So this year's revenue estimates are down in each of these 3 fund sources, unfortunately, totaling a reduction in about 4.7 million from last year's funding that was available for distribution. So this year's coordinated claim for the Transportation Development Act program, which is a 1/4 cent statewide sales tax, and also the largest source of operating revenue for our local bus operators. There's about 28 28 million available. And the way we have it formulated is that it's first divided between Golden Gate Transit as well as the local bus operators combined based on performance. So that's a share of the service hours and passengers in the county. And then the local bus share is then divided based on the portion of the population in each of the local bus operators' service areas. The State Transit Assistance Program, we did have a kind of a technical update that was in a handout for you. And this slide reflects that. It's essentially an update we got late last week about a reduction in the carryover amount available for the previous years, but the formulas stay the same and haven't changed for anything else. So the state transit assistance is revenue that comes through vehicle fuel taxes, and the piece of it that is at discretion by SCTA is the population-based funds that are distributed through the county block grant program. And so this year, that's a distribution of about 7.1 million. And those funds are, again, first divided between SMART, Golden Gate Transit, and the 3 local bus operators combined based on the share of service hours and passengers, so performance-based. And then for the local bus operators, we are doing a 12% based on performance, and then the remaining 88% distributed based on the population in each service area. And this is kind of consistent with the piece for the local bus operators that we had over the last 6 years for that formula. And then new to the coordinated claim this year is the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, which is a revenue from state cap and trade auctions. And there's a population-based portion that, again, SCTA has discretion over, and that's about $1.3 million this year. And this is kind of follows the same formula for the other 2 fund sources, but first being divided between SMART, Golden Gate, and the local bus operators based on performance, and then between the bus operators, local bus operators, based on share of the countywide population in their service area. The bottom table on the cover of the coordinated claim includes some kind of informational, some fund sources that are there for information, really for the benefit of the transit operators to see all of these fund sources in one place, but these are not part of the action. And so with that, the staff recommendation today is to approve the formulas with the estimates of revenue for distribution of the TDA, STA, and LC top funds in the fiscal year 25-26 coordinated claim, and approve the resolution associated with that. Again, we are working on refining a proposal for the ongoing coordinated claim and the formulas in that, and we'll be working with the transit ad hoc, over this year, hopefully not the entire year, but we will also be looking to the outcomes of the mascots service planning effort, as well as other potential changes and resources available to help inform that formula. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you so much for that. Bring it back to my colleagues. Any questions on this one? Seeing none, are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this in person? Seeing none, Ross, is there anyone online?
I do not see anyone online wishing to speak.
All right. With that, I will bring it back to my colleagues for any comments or questions or for a motion. Director Corsi,
Move to approve staff recommendation.
do we have a second on that item? Tie between Director Rabbit and Director, okay. Got the South County team working together there.
I'm sorry, it was Corsi and
And then we'll go with Rabbit for the second.
thank you.
Thank you so much for an excellent presentation. Really, really informative. Really appreciate the update on that. No one ever likes to see the declining revenues, but appreciate you sharing that with the board and members of the public today. With that, we'll go ahead and take a voice vote on this motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that does carry unanimously. Thank you so much, Dana. And with that, we will go ahead and move on to item 5.2, which is our legislative update. And I believe that our Executive Director, James Cameron, will present this item.
Thank you. Put together a brief PowerPoint that just summarizes the staff report that's in your packet today. So if we go to the next slide, we'll give a high-level overview of what's included. Starts out with some targeted bills, some ones that we're watching, some that we're supporting, that it gives us a little more focus than the large list of bills that's included in the report from our consultant Politico group. We'll touch base on the climate bond update, as well as a replacement of the gas tax and MTC's cap and trade principles. Those three things are probably the most transformative funding efforts that are in different phases of development and implementation. Just wanted this board to be well informed of them. We'll touch base also on federal funding focus, and MTC has a DC advocacy trip coming up in May. And then just as a reminder, there's the full reports from MMO Partners, our federal government affairs consultant, as well as Politico Group, our state government affairs consultant within the packet, and happy to answer questions on any of those. Chris Lee is here today on Zoom from Politico Group to assist with any Q&A that the board may have. Also within both of those packets are contact information for our contacts at MMO and Politico Group, and you feel free to reach out to me or them direct with any questions outside of the board meeting. Moving on to the next slide. Here's a brief summary of some targeted legislation that we've been looking at. That's a subset of that larger group. AB 306 is something that came out of the reaction from the LA wildfires. It went through the assembly very quickly and is in the Senate now, waiting for committee referrals. We are watching it closely because it is a moratorium on building standards that may not align with some of our efforts for building electrification and climate goals. Do not have a recommendation on a position yet, but wanted to know we're watching it closely. I'll go through and cover just a few of these. Bennett, AB 954. This is one that really focuses on a component of our State Transportation Improvement Program, or STIP, and it's the ITIP, which is the Interregional Transportation Program. So this program is something that's been very successful for finalizing the Marin-Sonoma Narrows, and then more recently funding things like the Smart Path heading up to Windsor. And this piece of legislation provides a pilot program that MTC would potentially be one of those regions selected for it, to use those ITIP funds to build out our bicycle and pedestrian highway network. So the the bike pedestrian highway, which aligns well with full implementation of our ATP. So wanting to really focus on those fund sources that can be transformative and implement our larger plans, especially within any of those bike highways that are aligned with the state highway system and being able to fund and implement those. So staff's recommending a support position. On AB 1014, also recommending a support position. So this is where those of you that are familiar with how vehicle speeds are set using a spot speed study in the 85th percentile, right? So you go out there and measure how fast vehicles are traveling and set a speed limit at 85%. That can sometimes be much faster than what is safe or what is conducive to a healthy community and all modes on that street. Santa Rosa's been doing a good job in implementing lower speed limits within their community. What this bill does is it's really a cleanup bill of AB 43 that allows Caltrans to use that same methodology. So for those state highways that run through communities like Sebastopol and Sonoma that do not necessarily have that same ability to reduce those speeds or set speeds that are appropriate for the conditions, it gives Caltrans that ability. So we felt that was one in supporting our prior chair Rogers in his bill 1014. The last couple that are on here as support were part of the last agenda as well, where we're still looking for better implementation of our SCTA advisory committees. We have trouble sometimes getting a quorum, and using the current exemptions that are available are not sufficient. The board itself, it's not something where we have had a need to go beyond the existing exemptions that are available to get quorums, but it can be really challenging, especially paratransit coordinating committee, citizens advisory committee, to allow some of those members to be able to zoom in virtually is what we'd like to see and actually count them as a quorum as opposed to just a member of the public watching. And then the last one there at the bottom, AB 697, is Wilson, who's the chair of Assembly Transportation, and that's the protected species legislation for State Route 37, which is a support position to be able to support the Resilient 37 program that essentially allows the Sears Point to Mare Island project to get the same permits that the Novato Creek project is getting as well. And delivering that project in a cost-effective manner. Moving on to the next slide, let's hit these three major funding programs. The first one is the climate bond. The climate bond, so $10 billion allocation likely over the next 3 years. The governor's office did do a press release today of the initial about $181 million that's going to state conservancies for wildfire resiliency. Now that is statewide, that is not a focus just in LA. And it's the kind of first initial outlay. We do expect the next major update to be part of the governor's May revise, right? Looking at what those allocations of that $10 million will be. Will it be, what's been proposed and discussed, or will it hold back more funds for years 2 and 3? And just as a reminder to the board, we are trying to leverage that status as a climate resiliency district, as well as coordinate with all our jurisdictions for multi-jurisdictional grant applications. Moving on to the next slide. We do have Kiana Valentine, a Politico group, who works closely with Chris Lee, who's going to come and update you all on the latest updates for the replacement of the gas tax. And this is something where revenues are continuing to decrease. We're looking for that equitable replacement where more than just those that are, driving EVs are not paying necessarily their fair share. And so how do we collect the gas tax from everyone? This road user charge technical advisory committee has been going on for over a decade now. There's currently a legislation out there to extend it to 2035. And we're really already behind the curve to be able to keep the revenues, being able to just sustain the infrastructure that we have. So look forward to that more detailed presentation from Kiana Valentine in May. Going on to the next slide. MTC ABAG recently adopted these cap and trade principles. And this is something where I feel like we have a seat at the table as part of this moving forward. And the pie chart on the right there represents the existing greenhouse gas reduction fund. It's funded through cap and trade and those programs that expire in 2030. Those of you who have been a part of this board for a few years have seen that TIRCIP grant that we applied for in 23 and got over $25 million to this county to help implement electrification and bus charging infrastructure. The LC top funds, Dana just referenced those as an ongoing fund source that goes to our transit operators based on population and revenue share. The Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Grant has funded transportation and housing infrastructure from Healdsburg down to Petaluma with different grants over time. So moving forward, these principles, I believe, can be well adopted to this board as well, primarily supporting that long-term extension. And then where it says fair share for Bay Area, of course, we're at the table looking also for a fair share for Sonoma County. And there's a full detail write-up of what each one of these mean within your packet. Fairly straightforward. I think that I'd be open to any input from this board to make sure that we're representing us well in Sacramento as we look for this extension. Moving on to the next slide. The federal funding outlook. So we are still looking at a business as usual approach for those formula funds. These are the sub-allocations that primarily come to us, through Caltrans local assistance or MTC grants. And we are able to, allocate funds and move forward and go through invoicing. The same is true of discretionary grants if we have a grant agreement. Our funds that we see most at risk are those discretionary grants that do not have grant agreements, and the current federal administration pushing a pause button on those grants regardless of the prior administration's awards. And we've gone through, we have larger lists that are available within our projects and programming report and working through our technical advisory committee. But we see these 4 particular discretionary grants that we would like to see grant agreements here within the next few months to not have them, be lost or reallocated. And we'll be continuing to advocate for these. The first one is the CRISI grant, which is a Federal Rail Authority grant that SMART got, and that is SMART to Healdsburg. That's a big chunk of pie to be able to deliver that infrastructure. Santa Rosa has electrical buses as well as bus charging infrastructure through the Low No Emissions Program, which is an FTA grant that is close to $10 million. They're waiting for their allocation on that. And then we have 2 Safe Streets and Roads for All grants. One is SMART, and that's the SMART Infrastructure Project, which is the path from just north Santa Rosa going up to the airport. So that piece of path, this is what is that last piece of the funding puzzle for that. And then lastly, like what I see as our superpower, which is those multi-jurisdictional grant applications for Safe Streets and Roads for All demonstration projects that represents 5 of the 10 jurisdictions represented on this board. Moving on to the next slide. That concludes my presentation, and open to any input and direction that this board would like to give to myself and Tanya and our consultants as we advocate in Sacramento and DC.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll bring it back to my colleagues for any questions. Director Lowe?
How are all the positions taken that you listed?
Yeah, so they're discussions between our consultants and myself.
Because I remember at one point, through the chair, we had a discussion regarding changing our position on a certain bill. And I just wondered if the positions on the bills would ever come before this body for concurrence on them. I mean, at that point, we had a significant discussion on that, and I'm not saying any of these I have an issue with it, but it just seems like there should maybe be a process where we would look at some of these.
Yeah,
before, because they'll show up on the analysis of the bill that, our body will be listed there.
Yeah.
And we could be asked about it and, how did you come to that decision? And, I'm just curious if there's ever been a process. So
Yeah.
that's all.
So there's 4 support positions within this packet. And I apologize if we have not had a robust discussion or even any discussion. It's really been informational items for this board. It hasn't been direct actions. And I'm very open to making them more direct actions or the board direction today to change any one of those positions or defer them to watch.
I said I didn't find any, disagreement. I just wondered if, maybe through the executive committee, they might look at them first and refer them to us. And, most bodies that I've been on, when they take a position on a bill is reflective of, there has been some sort of a position taken. That's all. And I think we should consider that.
Great. Director Harvey?
Yes, you mentioned the 4 items that you thought that the funding was pretty safe. Are those all in contract?
So those 4 that are listed, those are the 4 that are not in contract and only have what's called a discretionary award from the prior administration. So they're the most at risk.
Yeah, we were, some of us were on a call earlier this morning with Mike Thompson and Jared Huffman. And basically they were saying that just about anything that wasn't already in contract was going to be clawed back. And in particular, they are looking at specific words in some of these. So it sounds like it's possible that all of these may be taken back from us if they're not in contract. So it was a little bit saddening, shall we say.
Director or Vice Chair Kelly?
Thank you. And we did provide that list to Congressman Thompson's staff, who is going to be working and chasing to get hopefully positive resolution on them. Some of the hot button words were bicycle and pedestrian, because if we're not promoting burning more fossil fuels, then all of a sudden those grants are somehow at risk. Who knew that diversity, equity, and inclusion of bicycles would be the problematic language in our grants? That said, I just wanted to respond to Director Lowe's comments about the policy position. So when we did our legislative platform conversation, which I can't recall the last time we updated our policy positions on the legislative platform, that was the time in which we kind of roundtabled on some of the things that we felt would be priority issues, especially around building electrification and some of the things that RCPA's goals are. So I think that was the initial process that we as a full board went through to then inform staff of, these are the issues that we want to see prioritized in terms of our lobbyists taking positions or keeping us informed of the volume of bills. But I agree with you. I think as we're seeing some of those get, the volume of items coming out of Sacramento is quite high. And by the end of this, next 2 months, we'll probably start to see them whittle down quite a bit of what comes out of committee. And so then checking back in then to see where we really want to dig in, especially as they're being amended, makes a ton of sense, I think.
Thank you. Director Corsi? Very good. Okay. I have a couple of questions and also really look forward to following up on the process conversation and the funding conversation as well. AB 306, question about that. My understanding is that it would inhibit the opportunity to look at all electric ordinances or enhanced home hardening opportunities. And just kind of essentially assume that all changes, local changes to the code are a bad thing, and to just freeze that entirely without looking at a more nuanced approach that could, either have environmental benefits or public safety benefits. Is that accurate? We were first actually alerted to this by the Climate Center, who had concerns about all electric codes being impacted.
Yeah, that's my understanding of the bill as well. And it's not subject to just a rebuild area or a part that, where they want to be able to incentivize rebuilding without any additional requirements. It would be statewide and it would create a moratorium. The date's skipping my memory right now, but for a significant number of years.
And so that would also include like streamlining of code or elimination of current burdens that could actually potentially reduce the cost of building housing as well.
Yeah, it would cut both ways.
Okay, I guess I would be curious as to sort of why we wouldn't take an opposed position. Just because to me, it feels like you're looking at a sledgehammer when you could use a chisel. I agree that we shouldn't be making the construction of housing more, cost. We don't want it to be cost prohibitive. We don't want it to be more costly. And yet this could actually, to your point, cut both ways.
Could we defer to Chris Lee to chime in a little bit on taking a position and where the bill's at?
Sure.
Yeah, hi there, everyone, and sorry I'm off camera. I'm homesick with COVID, so haven't taken a shower
Oh,
today.
I'm sorry, but thanks for participating
yeah,
anyway.
No worries. It's just the headache phase now. So basically, I think it's pretty fair to say that the bill wouldn't allow any new electrification or sort of broader kind of energy efficiency requirements at the local level through 2031. So really a high, but it does allow jurisdictions to resubmit so-called reach codes that they already have in effect as of, I think that it's a date in the recent past to kind of prevent people from, gaming the system, right? There are exceptions for things related to home hardening and wildfire, but I think you're correct that it's a pretty broad prohibition of new requirements that go above and beyond whatever the state's building code would be. The interesting thing about this bill, especially compared to a lot of the housing bills that we've seen in recent years, is it does apply equally to the state and local government standards, again with carve-outs for fire related home hardening, but it's a pretty blunt instrument. As you can see from the sponsorships, there's a new Democrat from the San Gabriel Valley area in Los Angeles, near where the Eaton fire was a few months ago. But co-authored by Speaker Rivas. So this bill really flew off the assembly floor pretty quickly in session. I think the Senate is probably likely to take their time with it since it's a pretty significant policy change. Typically, we wouldn't see a lot of assembly bills heard on the Senate side until after the summer recess. So we're looking at, July, August of this year. So I think there'll be a more deliberative process on the Senate side, particularly because, the houses do like to leverage each other's priorities. And when the speaker really wants something, the Senate's not going to very quickly give him that without, extracting some sort of concession in return. So I really do think the Senate is where we're going to be able to have a more focused policy conversation on the implications of the bill. But you're generally speaking correct about the prohibition. Local governments can't have building codes that are less restrictive than what the state requires. So while you could, I guess, not resubmit local code amendments, you already can't require less than the state. So hard to say about the streamlining piece of it, but very fair to say that you couldn't be more stringent on energy efficiency and other matters.
And just to follow up, would this also potentially inhibit us from, kind of looking at enhanced water efficient landscaping? Like we've kind of casually discussed in unincorporated Sonoma County, a ban on irrigated lawns, which would literally have no potential impact to the cost of building a home, to say you can't put in an expensive turf lawn. But it seems like that kind of a water efficient upgrade for landscaping, if it occurs within the building code, which I believe is where it's currently situated in Sonoma County, would also not be allowed to move forward.
I will have to punt to someone who knows the building code better than me on that. I think that's a really good question, but I don't know where exactly what state law requires on that, and would a local ordinance be a adopted through the building code amendment process, or is that something that could be a separate local ordinance? I'm really not sure, but I think it's a really good question.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to look to David to see if he has any idea. When I quickly Googled it, it says that in unincorporated Sonoma County, we did adopt a water efficient landscape ordinance in 2009. It went effective into 2010, and that it was in section 73 of the building code. So I don't know, David, does that sound like it's in our building code and not in our zoning?
There is water efficiency in the state building code as well. And it doesn't necessarily talk about the individual plants. It talks about the amount of water that one could use for the amount of square footage that they're irrigating. So I think that, I'm not sure how you prohibit one over the other, but your allotment of water for the irrigated landscape would be what the building code really talks about.
Gotcha. So in other words, if we're looking at this legislation, we couldn't necessarily go down from what the state, if we don't already have something on the books, potentially.
It seems that way.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
All right. I also have a question on SB 707, which is part of the kind of Brown Act reform. My understanding was that would actually mandate city councils and board of supervisors to have a sort of phone in or Zoom option. And so doing sort of incur costs on local government. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct, Chair Hopkins. There are basically, it was interesting because it appeared that this bill and Senate Bill 239 by Senator Arreguín from Berkeley were a bit on a collision course because they both included provisions related to those subsidiary and advisory committees. And so I think a lot of people, including myself, thought this was the chair of the committee, Senator Durazo, the author of SB 707, coming in and saying, this is the way we're going to do it. But both bills actually advanced from the local government committee. And the way I understand it from talking to folks who've been really closely involved is that it's likely that the one-off bill, SB 239, will probably be a vehicle for a sunset extension. And this SB 707 will be the vehicle to negotiate sort of broader open meeting changes. But you're correct. If you have used video streaming technology in the past, I think it's the past couple of years, you'd be required to continue to do that. There's some other affirmative requirements, including making, good faith outreach to media to get folks involved and aware of meetings, and some provisions related to translation as well. So this bill includes sort of parallel language extending those current flexibilities, but it also has some costly additional provisions for cities and counties.
I just wanted to share that this is something we really struggled with at the county, and something that I, as someone who represents a very rural district, some of whom folks have to drive an hour to come to a board of supervisors meeting, initially really supported having phone in and virtual participation options. We became a target for absolutely hideous hate speech and had to shut that down because we honestly couldn't subject our staff to that kind of a hostile work environment. And we've thought a lot about how we could potentially bring it back. It would cost us probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to implement some kind of a delay. I feel very lucky that on this board, we haven't been targeted, knock on wood, and that on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, we also haven't had problems. But I have a lot of hesitations about supporting a bill that would force us into a situation where potentially we become a vehicle for neo-Nazi, racist hate speech to be promulgated publicly. And it was very difficult for members of the public. It intimidated members of the public, prevented them from commenting, actually. It was very, very difficult on our staff as well. So just wanted to sort of express some reservations, and I would sort of personally feel more comfortable with either an oppose unless amended position on 306 and 707, because I think that those are you know, 306, it would be great to be able to make sure that the home hardening and, you know, efficiency, electrification, water efficiency standards could be amended. And I just, again, I can't support something that forces that open meeting rule, which sounds great in theory, but not great when you sat through what we sat through for meeting after meeting. And then also wanted to check in, circling back on the process. I don't know if there's kind of any suggestions on how, because I do think one of the challenging things is when we only meet every month, bills evolve so quickly, and so they're going to committee, and so being able to be nimble. I don't know, Director Lowe, if you have any thoughts on potential direction on that, because you were the one who originally brought it up. Sorry to put you in the hot seat here.
No, it's okay. I mean, that obviously that happens. I mean, if it's substantive change, I mean, it all, you know, completely changes and it's gutted and amended, and now it's has something to do with, you know, commemorating Mother's Day or something like that, and it's no longer, the state, you know, relic or whatever. You know, I think that you give authority to, you know, to people to do that. But, I mean, as long as there's a conversation about it as we're having now, I think that that gives direction, you know, and if it, you know, substantively, you know, changes, like, for example, the hate speech thing that you brought up, which I completely agree with, and having been subjected to it a lot, and having also been the person that really believed that we need to give access to people. I mean, it's a really difficult situation, but I think that's the benefit of bringing these things to us and having the conversation, and then that gives people the direction. They kind of know what to do with it, you know. Right now, we don't. There's, you know, without having pulled these and having the conversation that we're having now, it's kind of hard, you know, you're just sort of leaving it to somebody else's decision. Not that somebody else is not capable, of course they are, but, you know, it is difficult. So sometimes you'd have to pull your support position to a watch if it changes a lot, things like that, you know. I think it's just the support and the oppose are the more difficult things. I mean, if you're watching it, you know, and it's going to change. But when you support something, you know, like this protected species thing, you know, and so forth, you know, that could change quite a lot. And, you know, we should be able to give authority and say, if it changes and it starts going off the rails, and, you know, you have the authority to move our position. I think that's pretty normal. That's the kind of thing that I know I did when I was a staff person working in Sacramento on bills. But we at least had an initial discussion so that everybody knew what they were. So it just helped the lobbyist. And sometimes we had to do a conference call, you know, if it's really serious, and especially if they need the votes, and it looks like our body might be able to help get some of those votes. We just quickly put together a quick call with the, you know, with the body, and said, hey, you know, we want to move to a support on this. You know, we're missing a couple votes. This could help, you know. We've got Sonoma County people, you know, on the fence, blah, 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 you know. So I think in some cases you just have to come back and have a conversation. Because they do look, you know, they go down that list and, you know, how come you haven't supported this, or how come, you know. So.
Any other thoughts, Director Kater Thompson?
I just want to follow up with Chair Hopkins' comments on 306 and 707. I agree with your comments. That was my reading on it. But as far as, you know, bringing, you know, Zoom or what back to the cities, I mean, what we're finding is people are just now coming into the city hall and just being disruptive by constantly walking during the meeting, chiming in and talking with people instead of really coming to listen to the meeting. So that's what we're getting now. But then on social media, we're getting where I was targeted, you know, with a cartoon with a long nose. And that was just, you know, 2 weeks ago. So these people, they're all working together. And I just really have a lot of concern about bringing this back. So you have to deal with this. And then you have to have staff dealing with this, because people can make it to meetings and then they find a different way of disrupting, or through social media. So with both of them, I concur with you.
Other comments, Director Corsi?
Just on the taking of positions, I feel like we've got the ability now, right now, to make these changes, to talk it over. You know, these bills are dynamic, they change over time. I think our position can change over time as well. I've been mostly comfortable with the positions that we've taken, and we have in the past changed those. And I'm supportive of continuing to do it that way. And if we want to change anything today, I think we have the ability to do that. The action is to consider these, so that's what we're doing.
Any other comments from my colleagues? Director Rabbit?
Just on the, I don't disagree. I think it's still early and all these bills are going to change. And so sometimes we jump out, take a support or oppose for that matter, and things will change. And then the next week, people are looking at the list and wondering why you are. You know, I'm always fine early on to do either a support or oppose unless amended. If, you know, to make sure that you're locked in at what it is when you reviewed it and made that vote or that decision, so that it doesn't go south on you. And then perhaps just watch the time frame so that we can chime in on those that we think are more important going forward. On the two bills, so I chaired, I'm the chair of the State Seismic Safety Commission. I can tell you last Tuesday, we started our meeting at 10 o'clock and had to take an hour break because we got Zoom bombed. And this is at Cal OES, the main building, and which happens to have a video wall, which is very unfortunate because I can never see what never not see what was on the video. And it was like 12 or 16 large screen TVs, and they couldn't get it off quick enough. And a lot of it had to do with the access mechanism that they were using that day because of a closed session and some other things. But totally agree, been through that, been there, done that. And as far as I know, the technology, even the best technology still to allow the public to come in, you have to trust that the person is saying who they are, even if their face is not up there, what they can say. And then the liability that it puts to local jurisdictions for, we know this at the county, the liability that it puts to local jurisdictions for not just the electeds, obviously, they don't count as much, but for staff, especially if it's really directed towards them. I think it's really a short-sighted piece. I think keeping it to the advisory is really where it needs to go. And I will just say this on the building code piece, because as an architect, I can tell you, if you build a new building right now, California building codes without any reach are very difficult to reach, to build, and they do add cost. Everything adds costs. And if you go through and we're doing some work right now at our house, and I swear we're paying several $1,000s extra for things that don't have anything to do with the project, but just have everything to do with satisfying building code requirement. So I just throw that out there because I don't want to be a hypocrite and say that, you know, we have a housing crisis, we make it too expensive, but at the same time, keep going down that same hole.
Other comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I will see if there are any members of the public in person who wish to comment on this item. Or anyone remotely.
Yes, Chair Hopkins, we do have two comments. I'll get those set up. Pardon me, a second. All right, Mr. Lutman, I've allowed you to speak. You may begin speaking as soon as you unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I'm the League of Women Voters appointee to the Citizens Advisory Committee to this body. I just wanted to share Chair Hopkins' concerns about 306 and 307. it would be my view that the county should, at this point, go with oppose unless amended. Sure, you can always change your mind later. In fact, that's what if amended means. More generally, about these positions, I'd have to agree with Council Member Lowe. Having been on the advisory committee now for several years, I must say I'm very impressed with your staff. I think you've got a great staff, they're very competent people. And they probably do a great job with all of these position statements, but officially, it's you that speaks for the county, and you need to be able to defend any decision. So I think that while you can take the recommendations of the staff, it would be a good idea for you as a body to endorse any of these positions and make sure that you have given some time and thought to what your position is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Next, we have Tom Conlon. You may, I've allowed you to speak. You may start speaking when you unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Tom Conlon here in Sonoma Valley, also a member of the CAC, but representing myself with these comments now. I hope nobody will take anything I'm saying as hate speech. However, in this day and age, you can't be sure any longer as our community standards are changing so dramatically. If you do decide to take a position to restrict participation, remote participation in your meetings, you know, in the statewide bill that would allow that to be the case. We should reflect on how that is perceived by the public. I think these are public meetings. We do have an obligation to listen to the public. Yes, sometimes the public is disruptive and inappropriate, but if we shut them out, then it creates pressure that will happen elsewhere in society. And I don't think that's necessarily the best thing to be doing right now. To the state building standards bill, I agree with the discussion. I appreciate the discussion. And I agree with Chair Hopkins that you should take a oppose unless amended position on that bill today. That'll be a strong signal to the state Senate and our allies there to push back on the Assembly's proposal. And then finally, again, appreciate the work from staff, James and his team on this. I'm wondering if there is any information on the Lori Wilson bill. My understanding is that that Jared Huffman, who would be instrumental in getting federal funding for that project, has spoken. His team is against it right now. And I believe also the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria have indicated some concerns. So if that's misinformation, I hope that'll be corrected in response to my question. But if it's still uncertain, then I would recommend you take a watch position until that can be clarified. Thank you for your consideration of my comments.
Thank you, Tom. Chair Hopkins, there are no more members of the public wishing to speak.
Thank you. I will bring it back to my colleagues and also if there's any response on the Lori Wilson bill. I wasn't sure which one he was referring to.
Sure. So the Lori Wilson bill he's referring to is bill number 697. And that is a bill that revolves around fully protected species. The support to date have.
Oh,
Might be the speaker timer.
Yeah.
I got to stop talking.
Yeah.
Time's up.
Your time's up, James. That's it.
Sorry, James. Please continue.
So the The recommended support position comes out of both our legislative principles, which are to support the Resilient 37 program, as well as the Resilient 37 Policy Committee, recommendation for support of the bill. There are folks that are not supportive of it, and two of those members were just pointed out by Tom Conlon, our CAC, Federated Indians of Grant and Rancheria, as well as Congressman Huffman, and then also the chair of the policy committee, Eric Lucan, all opposed the legislation. My understanding is because they opposed the project. The project is from Sears Point to Mare Island. It adds a carpool lane at existing grade. It's approximately a $500 million project. The first phase of the project is funded at $100 million, and the $400 million to complete that carpool lane is currently unfunded. The Resilient program itself also has a $1 billion project to do an elevated causeway between Atherton and US 101. That $1 billion has about a $200 million project moving forward. They're going to do temporary ramps up to that $200 million project to be able to elevate the causeway over Novato Creek. We'd welcome any sort of federal support for either of those projects to be able to advance them. The request from the opposition to the bill is to essentially move forward with a $3 billion project between State Route 121 and Mare Island. So it is a contentious subject. The recommendation has been to support. I will, of course, proceed with whatever this board directs our organization to represent.
All right, bringing it back to the board, Director Rabbit.
Yeah, as someone who's been involved with Highway 37 for pretty much as long as I've been a supervisor, I think, and not to put you on the spot, James, but I don't know of any large infrastructure project around that hasn't had some sort of incidental take protection, including 101 freeway, including smart, just about everything. I mean, it's actually a responsible way to actually approach the issue, is to go down that path, because it sets up the way that you go about doing your business and the way that you actually can protect the environment the best way possible. At the same time, you can't build in those kind of environments. So you can't build 101 freeway without having that protection behind you, or else you'll, if it's a 5 billion project, you'll make it a 10 billion project. And if you don't want a project, that's a great way to do it.
Other comments from my colleagues? All right, so this is an action item, and I think the question is, are we satisfied with the proposals brought forth from staff, or do we want to, for instance, look at and oppose unless amended on the couple of bills that were brought up with respect to meeting requirements and the building code? Or there was a suggestion from a member of the public regarding the bill about Highway 37. So how does everyone feel, or does someone want to make a motion?
I'm happy with our position as proposed by the executive director.
All right. I support most of the positions. I cannot support the meeting requirement that would not allow us to safeguard staff from hate speech. And I'm personally opposed to AB 306 because I think that it needs to include flexibility for building code improvements. Freezing isn't always necessarily the best step, in my opinion. Do we have a second on that motion? Director Corsi?
Question to you. I understand your opposition. Are you opposed unless amended, straight opposed?
I'd be opposed and less amended on those two. I just think that they need to be amended. And with respect to, and I really appreciate, Tom Conlon's remarks about open meetings. And yet, I mean, we had a Zoom bombing in which our Black female head of health services was subjected to a lynching video. We had people calling in and making Jewish members of our community, because of the hideous neo-Nazi statements that were being made, uncomfortable speaking. And we also actually had board members who were doxxed, where someone would immediately start saying the personal home address of a member of the Board of Supervisors. And I believe that that doxing was also occasionally targeted to staff as well.
I'll second your motion.
So I guess maybe I'll make a friendly amendment of oppose unless amended on 306 and 707. Is that a?
Sure, I think we're going to get an opportunity to see both those come around again. So.
Okay. All right. So then if you accept the amendment, I make the second. Is that how this works from Robert's rules? Okay. I hate it when we do this complicated stuff. All right. Okay, so with that, and I think that we kind of heard the conversation that we're hoping for with those two is just like maybe a little bit of flexibility. And I think that gives us the opportunity to support if it does change. With that, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions?
You know what,
Seeing-
I'm going to abstain only because what I said on the building code one really is a strong feeling of mine, so I'm going to abstain if we're going to go down that path. I will
Okay.
say that we need to figure out going forward, I'm on a ledge committee at MTC that takes, if you want to go through every bill and take a position and really have the debate, it's going to take 3 hours, 4 hours. And we really need to think about how we want to do that. I just throw that out there because I'm not sure if we want our meetings to be an extra 2 hours long.
I think that's a really good point. And actually on the Air District, we also have a legislative committee that kind of pre-vets those to bring them to the board. And if there's no decision made there, or if it's controversial, then it sort of comes to the board for a full, yeah, it could be, but I think we need more than the amount of time that we have, which we usually take fully. So, so maybe that's something that, we can follow up. James, and if you want to bring forward a suggestion on that in the future, or do you have any thoughts that you want to share now?
So, I mean, my initial thought is that we just did what I wanted the item to do. And so thank you all for the input that we have. And that's really clear direction. And that's really all I need and the consultants need. With that being said, the concerns that were voiced here, I think I'd like to reach out to the individuals and come up with a solution that works for them and make a proposal in the future.
Great. I love that. So definitely follow up with Sandra and Ariel and, well, Susan, you were talking a little bit more about the funding, but I think the funding piece is really critical. And so I don't know if we can also, even though we took a motion, provide just some direction. I think we are all interested in how can SCTA, RCPA fight for our local jurisdictions funding, right? So thumbs up, nodding heads on that. Okay. With that, we have concluded item 5.2. That takes us to item 5.3, which is our Bayren update from Anna and Chris. And I apologize. Is it Anna or Anna? I always forget.
It's Anna.
Okay, got it right.
Yeah. All right, wonderful. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Anna Oliva, and I am the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, or BayREN Program Specialist and Local Government Liaison with SCTCA. And today I'll be providing you an informational briefing on BayREN and its implementation in Sonoma County, an overview of our program portfolio, some highlights from our education and outreach, and conclude with sharing some of our 2025 priorities and next steps. All right, so a quick refresher for some of you. Again, the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, or BayREN, is a collaboration of the 9 counties in the Bay Area and the Association of Bay Area Governments, working together to provide regional scale energy efficiency programs, services, and resources to residents, businesses, and local governments throughout the Bay Area. BayREN employees are local government employees throughout the region, working to implement each program through tailored approaches to program development, communication, and outreach, all stemming from local governments that are most familiar with the unique challenges of their communities. I also want to note, administered by the CPUC, BayREN is primarily funded by the California utility ratepayers through public goods charge levied on regular bills by the IOUs. So in our case, that would be a line item charge on your PG&E bill. RCPA serves as a county representative for Sonoma County and also serves as a program lead for Water Upgrade Save, which is led by Program Manager Chris Cohn. Also important to note that the County of Sonoma Energy and Sustainability Team is also a key partner for implementing BayREN and is contracted by the RCPA to provide technical expertise, marketing and outreach, and program implementation for all of our programs. BayREN has 3 key priorities. First, promoting healthy and energy efficient buildings for residents and businesses, building capacity for local governments to increase their impact, and reducing carbon emissions by catalyzing regional activities.
Now, despite our strong history of public-facing outreach and community engagement, RCPA recognized that there was a gap in our ability to support local government capacity, which led to the creation of the Barron Local Government Liaison role, which I currently serve as. And my role is designed to be an approach to enhance local government capacity, improving communication and driving participation in energy efficiency and decarbonization efforts throughout the county. And by serving as a trusted bridge for Barron resources, city staff, advisory committees, and elected bodies, my role is to increase awareness for the Barron programs, which, as you'll find out in the next 5 minutes, can be pretty complicated and diverse. So again, through tailored outreach and focusing on relationship building, proactive alignment with local government priorities and policies, working to increase our participation, especially with some of our programmatic changes that we've seen over the past year. And again, because each jurisdiction has their own unique needs and priorities, my role is to coordinate with staff and leverage the Barron programs in a way that best serves each community. And I do want to make a quick note for City of Healdsburg, because they are their own electric utility provider, and often in order to participate in Barron program offerings, you do need to be a PG&E customer. We work closely with their staff to understand what resources can be available both for their residents and businesses, and especially for their staff. Now I'd like to introduce Barron's programs that provide the Bay Area with rebates, funding, technical assistance, education, and more. Barron manages 10 new and existing programs spanning 4 sectors: our residential sector, commercial, cross-cutting, and our public sector. And I'll be providing more information on each of the programs in a moment, but now I'd like to introduce Chris Cohn with SCTA and the program lead for Water Upgrade Save to share a little information about the program.
Thank you, Anna, and good afternoon, everyone. So Water Upgrade Save is a unique program in the Barron portfolio in that it allows municipal water utility customers to install water and energy efficient upgrades with little to no upfront cost. We do this using a utility approved on-bill charge that is lower than the estimated savings. This program design is all about removing the barriers for participation in the program for utility customers. The program also has assurances that make it easy to join, such as little to no upfront payment, no new debt, and no credit check required. Participants pay only while they are a utility customer at the project location, and a guarantee that failed measures are repaired or the on-bill charge ends. The way this is possible is our 80% rule. This states that the monthly on-bill charge can be no greater than 80% of the estimated savings, and the repayment period no longer than 80% of the upgrade's useful life. This formula allows us to base our projects on a portion of the savings that will be produced and deliver to the customer some immediate savings right away, while they can use a portion of their savings to pay the on-bill charge. To calculate the charge, we use estimated savings from water, sewer, and water heating utility bills. We deliver high efficiency warranted products. We use site-specific data to calculate the project cost. And then we also base the entire project summary on current volumetric rates. So we're not looking into the future, anticipating increasing rates. We base it in today's rates. Next slide. So Water Upgrade Save is what is known as an inclusive utility investment program, also called tariffed on bill. So it is not a consumer loan or rebate program. It's administered by Barron, but we also have a partner in the Association of Bay Area Governments, which is our capital provider. So the way the program works is a utility invests in customer side upgrades using its rate-setting authority to establish the on-bill charge. The utility decides which customers to target and how much to reduce water demand. The program provides turnkey services to qualify, install, and verify projects. This means that there's minimal utility staff time required to implement a program and no utility budget. The ABAG finance service provides the capital to pay for the projects as services rendered. The utility then collects the on-bill charge that is provided to them by the program from participants in the program. And the the utility then uses those collected on-bill charges to repay ABAG. And finally, the customers use their utility bill savings to pay for the on-bill charge. Currently, the city of Sebastopol and the city of Cloverdale are enrolled, and to date, we have completed 82 projects between the two utilities. I do want to mention that this inclusive utility investment program design has been in use for over 20 years, primarily at electric utilities around the nation. There have been 6,000 projects under those programs completed so far, $50 million in investment. And recently, in the past 2 years, the CPUC had, under its clean energy financing rulemaking, has brought tariffed on-bill program design into their portfolio, and currently investor-owned utilities providing electric and natural gas are looking at and developing programs based on this model. Our program, provides services for multifamily, public, business, and single-family customers with indoor upgrades that includes efficient toilets, shower heads, and aerators. And we have developed recently an outdoor program for single-family customers that will allow them to put drip irrigation equipment costs on bill in combination with a lawn conversion program. And these services are in line with state goals. The state has moved from emergency response to drought to an ongoing process of managing water supply. And so all utilities now have a water budget, and they have to produce efficiencies for residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional, outdoor, and water loss. So our program is able to support utilities in all these areas. Finally, the regional program operator enrolls participants, conducts on-site assessments so we know exactly what equipment is in place and what we're replacing it with. They give the customer a project summary with all the financial details. They assist in contractor scheduling and conduct a post-project quality assurance inspection. Our program contractors are licensed, bonded, and provide a labor warranty. Once a project is approved by the operator, the utility is notified to apply, collect, and repay the on-bill charges to ABAG. So that's a summary of our program. Any questions that I can answer?
Thank you so much. Any questions from my colleagues?
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I will ask if any members of the public in person wish to comment on this item. Oh, are we going back? Okay.
A few more
Okay.
slides to run through, but I will make sure we have time for comments from the public. Let me go to the next slide. All right, well, thank you, Chris, for that overview of Water Upgrade Save. I do want to quickly touch on our residential programs. This would be Ease Home, Green Labeling, and our Bay Area Multifamily Building Enhancement Program, Bambi. Everyone loves the name. And I'm really excited to share, we are going to begin the launch of Efficiency and Sustainable Energy Home, or Ease Home, in the coming months. Again, Ease Home replaced our Home Plus program, which previously served single-family homeowners in sunset in the fall of 2024. So this new program is going to offer income-eligible Bay Area residents customized, low-cost energy upgrades focused on comfort, health, and efficiency for the home. And in order to qualify, households must have an income at or below 120% of the area's median income. And I can provide those specific numbers following the presentation, and reside in a single family home, and of course have a PG&E account. Some participants will receive a free home assessment, personalized energy recommendations, and comprehensive support for upgrades such as insulation, duct sealing, and optional electrification of gas appliances. Barron will cover up to 80% of the retrofit costs, ensuring affordability, hassle-free installation, and vetted contractors. And participants only pay the copayment, while Barron will also handle permits, rebates, and the rest of the project process. And I do want to note, while we were undergoing the redesign for this program, we did hold multiple advising meetings with your staff, so they could be part of the redesign process, share their input and their feedback from the previous single family program. And we're continuing to engage them as we prepare for building our project pipeline. And we're expecting to launch this program in late summer of this year. I'm hoping to serve about 100 homes in our first full program year in Sonoma County specifically. Next, I have the Green Labeling Program, which builds off Barron's work in the single-family market by focusing on additional market actors and has two key offerings. The first is the Home Energy Score Program that trains assessors to do a home energy score, or HEES score, as we commonly call it, and provides customers rebates for completed scores, and that rebate is currently $200. The Home Energy Score provides homeowners, buyers, and renters directly comparable and credible information about a home's energy use. The Home Energy Score is similar to a miles per gallon rating for a vehicle. So using a 1 to 10 scale, 1 being least and 10 being most efficient, the score estimates a home's energy use as well as provides recommendations to reduce the amount of energy needed to save energy, cut costs, and improve comfort. And the second component of this program provides education and other opportunities for realtors, appraisers, and lenders to increase their ability to understand and market and evaluate energy efficient and green homes. And we found specifically for this program, connecting with realtors has been a real pinch point in identifying point of sale and connecting with buyers as a way to improve their homes. And finally, for a residential program, we have our Bambi program, which is an equity sector program that provides no-cost technical assistance and rebates ranging from $500 to $5,000 per unit. The program serves multifamily properties that have 5 or more units. We do have some exceptions for smaller unit buildings ranging in 2 to 4 units, but they must have central HVAC systems. And we get questions a lot if condos are allowed to participate in the program. Specifically in Sonoma County, your staff are very interested in condo eligibility. And generally the answer is yes for that, but we do like to coordinate for each specific project. Another program requirement requires a minimum of 2 upgrades to achieve at least 10% of building-wide energy savings. And there is a wide range of possible upgrades that can apply to this program, but some of the most common ones include insulation, new windows, lighting upgrades, HVAC systems, and replacements, and heat pump water heaters. And this program aims to reach multifamily communities that are often underserved by traditional programs. And specifically, Bambi focuses on including smaller, meaning less than 50 unit, deed restricted buildings, unsubsidized, affordable housing. One of the key elements of Bambi's program is that it's designed to engage property owners who are sensitive to the barriers of participating in a rebate program and help them plan and undertake upgrades. And specifically in Sonoma County this year, we will be piloting an effort focused on relationship building with property owners for less than 25 unit buildings, and focusing on the education component and walking them through the process from the site assessment to project completion. One other thing I want to note for our Bambi program is that we do currently have a strong partnership with Sonoma Clean Power, who has provided a panel upgrades offering, which we hope to continue in the future. Next, we have our 2 business programs, which support small, hard-to-reach businesses throughout the region. Bayren Business is an innovative pay-for-performance energy efficiency program that provides rebates, financing, and technical assistance to qualifying businesses, enabling them to install energy-efficient upgrades such as HVAC, refrigeration equipment, and lighting upgrades. The program is designed for small and medium, hard-to-reach businesses. And in Sonoma County, in order to qualify, businesses must meet at least one of the following program criteria: leasing or renting their building, having fewer than 25 employees, using a primary language other than English, or being owned, operated, or located on California Native American tribe territory. In addition to covering the cost of upgrades, Bayern Business offers a range of benefits. Participating businesses can receive free energy assessments. Even if they don't decide to go through with the program, they can still receive that initial service. And businesses can expect potentially little to no out-of-pocket costs, as well as ongoing maintenance support for their project. I do want to note that this program recently transitioned to a new program implementer and will relaunch in spring of this year. And we do currently have a healthy project pipeline lined up for when that launch occurs. And next, we have the Bayren Refrigerant Replacement Program, or BRR, which is one of our new programs in our portfolio. Again, BRR is an equity program aimed at helping small, independently owned food and floral businesses reduce their reliance on high global warming potential refrigerants. Also cut greenhouse gas emissions from leaky refrigerant systems, and lower utility costs through energy efficiency measure upgrades and regular maintenance, which was identified as one of the key barriers for small businesses that did have refrigeration systems. Sonoma County will also be one of the first counties to pilot the BRR program as it rolls out this program year, which is exciting. So we'll be reaching out to your staff to identify some opportunities there. And for these 2 programs specifically, because of the timing of their rollout and the program offerings, we'll be launching a joint marketing campaign. So we're looking forward to connecting with chambers of commerce, economic development departments, as well as other groups to promote the program. Next, we have our Climate Careers Program, which is offered in partnership with Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. In Sonoma County, the program offerings currently include energy efficiency kits and virtual greenhouse calls. This program is rolling out regionally in different phases. So in the future, we're hoping to have the opportunity to have a satellite office located somewhere in Sonoma County. And very appropriate for our previous conversation we were having, I'd like to touch on our public programs right now that are specifically designed to serve local government staff, mainly building departments and facilities and operations staff. So first, our Codes and Standards program is a joint effort of local governments to support development, implementation of tools, best practices, trainings, and policies for accelerating compliance with and exceeding the energy code. And as Director Rabbit mentioned, the current building code is very complicated, and one of our primary goals is to support staff in understanding the basics of implementing the code, and then also support them if they do desire to go beyond the code and reach code development. Some of the key program offerings, as I mentioned, include supporting development and implementation of codes policies, and we do have a reach code group specifically for local government staff around the energy code, reach code compliance that recently has been having a large focus on AB 306 and making sure that we can support staff as best we can with the information that we have so they can have an informed decision. Other components of the program include providing training and resources for building staff, supplying no-cost technical assistance for municipal buildings, and organizing quarterly regional forums, which are on a variety of energy and emission reduction topics. One other thing for the Codes and Standards program that I want to highlight is the Barron Existing Building Study, led by the Codes and Standards program, which provides local governments with data about the existing buildings in their jurisdictions, paired with data on energy use and greenhouse emissions per building type. The study will also include a building characterization analysis and decarbonization pathways for upgrading buildings, which is expecting to be available by the end of April. And I also want to note that some of your staff have already taken advantage of this existing building study dashboard, so we look forward to continuing that in the future. Next, we have our 2 new public programs. The first is our Targeted Decarbonization Services Program, which aims to support local governments and municipal decarbonization efforts. The program has 2 key services, our Showcase and Education and Financing. The Decarbonization Showcase will highlight strategies in select municipal buildings, approximately 10 throughout the Bay Area, demonstrating how various building types can reduce carbon emissions and improve energy performance. Data and best practices from these projects will help inform case studies to expand these approaches to other public facilities. The Education and Financing Service will offer local government staff information on the operation and maintenance of decarb technologies along with financing options. This will also explore funding sources and test incentive programs to offset technology costs in the future. And finally, we have the Integrated Energy Services Program, which complements the existing Energy Concierge and Energy Road Mapping services available through the PG&E Local Government Partnership, which is managed by the County of Sonoma Energy and Sustainability Team. Alrighty. And as you can imagine, that is a lot of information and a lot of different programs. And so you might be wondering, what does this actually look like in the context of Sonoma County? First, specifically for your staff, my role aims to help them understand what each of these program offerings actually look like in the context of their community. And this is connecting to climate action plans, energy policies, and priorities for staff, and also opportunities to partner on some of our existing outreach efforts, which we'll see shortly. Another element has been tapping into city communication channels to help distribute and promote Barron information through the trusted messenger of city channels. I also want to share that in my work so far, I've presented to several elected bodies, had many portfolio briefings with your staff, specifically when it comes to onboarding and helping support each jurisdiction when it comes to staff turnover, which I know can be a burden, and overall coordination meetings with your staff to understand how our programs evolve, what they look like in our outreach and education efforts. So for our outreach and education, this has been one of our strongest ways we implement Barron in the county. You can see above, we have our workshops, community events, trainings, but those really only scratch the surface of what we're able to offer. We also support your staff by tabling. I know it's Earth Month, so we've been coordinating for a handful of events there. We have our residential workshops, as well as connecting with some of your climate action committees and advisory groups. One thing I wanted to address is a question that I commonly get from staff is how does Barron help support local government and equity goals? I do want to note that one of Barron's primary purpose as a REN is filling gaps in the energy efficiency program space. And we do have programs specifically designated to support equity communities. And here I want to highlight our multifamily program, again, tapping into property owner engagement. And soon this year, we'll be focusing on renter engagement and understanding what these upgrades and impacts can be for renters and the importance of behavior in that. Supporting hard to reach businesses. And another thing we emphasize in all of our outreach is bilingual outreach and education. So again, in Sonoma County, that's primarily supporting our Spanish-speaking community. And I've mentioned it before, but really trying to tie in value to each of your jurisdictions by identifying opportunities within climate action plans or your primary documents if you don't have a climate action plan, and connect with your staff on the best way to implement and support that. I also work to provide jurisdiction-specific data. So what is the actual participation for your city or town? And some of our metrics for community engagement. And lastly, I'll just quickly touch on again some of our 2025 priorities. Again, this is really supporting building departments, especially when it comes to AB 306 and understanding the possible implications of that. General training opportunities and education for understanding what the current code is. We're also hoping to enroll additional utilities for water upgrade save, both in Sonoma County and regionally. Increasing multifamily participation through targeted relationship building, having a successful launch of Ease Home and ensuring strong program participation for that. And finally, supporting our business programs and their relaunch and hoping to increase our participation in those two programs in the future. And finally, an ongoing goal for my role is always to continue to expand BAREN awareness throughout the community in partnership with each of your jurisdictions. So I would be more than happy to present at a council meeting, continue to coordinate with staff or any other opportunities that you see fit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will bring it back to my colleagues for any questions. Director Giudice?
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. And also thank you, how well you've been working with our staff and everything. We really appreciate it. Obviously, communication is the key here, right? All of this. And you mentioned chambers and you look at some of these programs and you're like, gosh, Norbar should be aware of them. I don't know if the realtors are, commercial realtors and stuff like that. And then, you almost have to go grassroots, and this whole thing about the refrigerant, we get annual health inspections from environmental health. If there was some kind of a leaflet that the County of Sonoma through environmental health could put out to all of those restaurants and all those catering facilities, et cetera, just advising them of the programs, right? Because I'm sure a lot of restaurant owners would love to change out some of the refrigerant in there, right? It leaks and it's not efficient and it's polluting. It's horrible. And then with regards to outreach, with the Latin community, I think probably one of the biggest resources in Sonoma County is Los Cien, and I don't know if you have done any outreach to Herman and really finding those small businesses, because that really is the tough nut. And more than anything else, those are the business that could really use the rebates and really benefit from it. And a lot of times, English is a second language, or it's just hard to penetrate that barrier. So thank you for everything that you do. And we're trying to promote it down in Rohnert Park, and I'm encouraging my marketing department to pump it out via social media. I think all of you should do that as well with your jurisdictions, because I think the more people know, then the more we can make the change, right? So thanks.
Director Leap?
Wow. Thank you very much for that presentation. Just a mind blower. It it reminds me of a couple of presentations I've seen from Zero Waste Sonoma, where they just go through a litany of program after program, and it's really amazing. In Windsor, we're really focusing on climate and environmental action. We have a great new sustainability coordinator who is working on that. And I would love to look into having you come make some sort of presentation in Windsor. It'll be fantastic. So I just had one quick question here. Actually, it's a two-part answer. And everything seems to be, or a lot of things are directed towards large collections of organizations, real estate owners, developers, and whatnot. But I did see Ease Home come out and BAREN Business, and they seem to be more directed at individuals or at businesses. And I didn't understand until the very end that Ease Home is not yet rolled out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And how about BAREN Business?
BAREN Business is currently going to relaunch in the coming months because of our implementer transition.
So since it's not rolled out, I couldn't ask the question, which was, what sort of penetration do you see for ease home? I don't even know how to estimate that.
Yeah, well, again, we're hoping to serve approximately 100 homes in Sonoma County, just for general numbers. And currently, to support the buildup of the program launch, we do have a customer interest form that we're filling out, and I believe we have approximately 57 people on that interest form right now. And as we get closer to the program launch itself, we'll go through the income verification process to vet some of those people on the interest form moving forward. And we do partner with LoCN, Soluna as well, and a handful of our other CBOs in the community to promote the program, especially for our business program. And eventually when Burr rolls out, we'll do the same for that.
I'd also like to hire your acronym committee. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions or comments from my colleagues? Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item in person? Anyone online?
Yes, Chair Hopkins, we have one person online. We have Rick Lutman. Rick, you may start speaking when you unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I wanted to go back to the low water program, the Water Safe program. That sounds like a great idea to me. We live in a region where there's more and more people trying to divide up less and less water. I think both trends will continue into the future. So water savings program is a great idea. And this program you talked about is going to encourage people to participate because they pay less for it than they save. They can pay for it out of the savings. But I was disappointed to see that only 2 cities in Sonoma County, Sebastopol and Cloverdale, are participating in this. And I wondered if you could say anything about why there aren't more. Is it because, have they said anything to express concerns about it? Is it just that they need a nudge? Is the program too new? I was very happy to hear Director Giudice say a few minutes ago that he's pushing it in Rohnert Park, because that's where I live. I'd like to see that come here. But is there anything you can say about why there's only 2 cities?
Yes, this is Chris Cohn. So we are in active conversations with 3 other local jurisdictions at the moment. And those conversations, a couple are new and some have been going on for a little while. So we do expect more local jurisdictions to join the program in the near future.
Great. Any other members of the public online who wish to comment?
No, Chair Hopkins, I don't see any additional commenters.
Seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. Director Harvey.
Uncooperative today. There we go. Got it. Have you reached out to the water saving partnership to help with some of, your outreach?
Absolutely. We've been in partnership with them from the beginning. And Paul Piazza, who administers that program, was water conservation manager at town of Windsor, which was our first pilot program. So we do have a strong working partnership with them.
Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or questions from my colleagues? I concur with Director Leap. It was a very impressive presentation. Really appreciate the overview of all the programs and opportunities that are available through BayRent. So thank you very much for that. And any going once, going twice? Any final? Thank you again so much for the presentation. We'll go ahead and move on to the reports and announcements. And I'll kick it over to James for the Executive Committee report.
Sure. Our executive executive committee covered a review of the agenda that we just went through. We talked about the preliminary budget, which will be coming to the board next month, as well as discussions about the pending fiscal year 27 transit coordinated claim, of which you saw a Marin formula proposed for 26 that was approved today, and looking to evaluate whether that's the right formula or another formula going forward next year and beyond. We also covered some of the Bay Rent updates, and we're also looking forward to bringing to the board next month the Sonoma County Transportation and Climate Authority's rebranding for final board approval. And that concludes my report out on the exec committee.
Great. With that, we'll go ahead and move to regional agency reports. Any reports from my colleagues on regional agencies?
All you. It's all me? It's all you. Wow. We approved a pilot program with the help of MTC for reduced or no cost riding with the Golden Gate Bridge project. We already have it here up in Sonoma County with the local transit agencies, but now you can get, you know, from BART to GGB or Muni or what have you, and get up into Marin and Sonoma County with that reduced fare. It's a 2-year program, I believe. We approved an emergency contract to replace one of the original electrical panel breaker things. I don't know exactly, what would you say it was? It was an entire panel. The thing about this is that this breaker was installed in 1937. And so it was one of the original with the bridge. And when it went pop, it took out about half the lights on the bridge. So we have backup generators now, and we've ordered replacement parts. We're gonna have to make actually the cavity that this thing was contained in larger, because they don't make them like they used to in 1937, and they shouldn't. And then as James said, we're going through the same thing that everyone's going through with regards to the, Federal Transit Administration and the Federal Highway Administration, not signing, new agreements. Even if the agreement had already been signed, but not obligated, it's, it's on hold. And so there we are. It's, what will happen out of Washington tomorrow, and then the next day and the next day. So I guess that's about it.
Any other regional agency reports? Seeing none, we have just acknowledgement of the advisory committee agendas, and then up next, marketing communications update with Ross.
Afternoon, directors. Following is a brief highlight of SCTCA engagement efforts over the past month. So staff partnered with La Familia Sana, which is a nonprofit organization serving Spanish-speaking community up in Geyserville and Cloverdale. Distributed some bilingual materials and received significant engagement with the Spanish version of the Comprehensive Transportation Plan survey. That survey will continue to be promoted at numerous upcoming in-person events in the area. Staff also tabled at the Katati Climate Fair on March 28th, this time promoting surveys also for transportation, but primarily focusing on the Equitable Building Electrification Survey, or EBEEP, which will be talked about probably a little bit more shortly. And then engagement will continue at numerous events coming up associated with Earth Day and Bike Month. Scheduled tablings include Santa Rosa Earth Day on April 26th, Windsor Earth Day on April 27th, Petaluma Future Fest on May 4th. And we'd of course also like to draw attention to the Bike-In Block Party on May 10th, followed by Bike to Work Day on May 15th. So please let me know if you have any questions about these or any other marketing topics.
Any questions? Awesome. Thank you so much, Ross, for the updates. Appreciate that. I think Tanya is up next with our climate change report.
Good afternoon, Chair Hopkins and directors. I have a brief update for you today. Earlier in the agenda, you heard updates on 2 of our top priorities on the climate team, which were the Bay Rent update, which you just heard, and then James covered the Prop 4 and climate bond. work that we're doing and our focus on finding more funding for climate action in the county. So I'd like to highlight a third priority area that is taking a fair amount of staff time, which is our work on the Equitable Building Electrification Action Plan. So over the last month, BC, who is our lead on this effort, completed a draft of the goals and actions for this plan and has been reviewing actually multiple times over the last several months with our Climate Action Advisory Committee and a staff working group to get feedback on those goals and actions. And he's also planning to reach out to the folks who were part of our climate protection initiative. You may recall back a few years ago, we pulled together a group of experts in the building electrification space to advise on that initiative. And so BC wants to reach out and get some input from those folks as well. So that will be happening soon. In terms of outreach, I left a card on your at your places, which is our survey, which we're asking folks to fill out and provide some inputs for the action plan. And this will be translated into Spanish, and the survey will be available in Spanish as well. And we are also working to form an equity focus group so that we can get specific input on the equity components of the plan to make sure that we're not missing anything there. And then finally, we plan to bring a draft of this plan to you in June for your review and input before finalizing. So you'll be seeing that very soon. And then next up, I wanted to highlight a couple of cases of countywide climate action coordination that we've been working on. The first is related to an effort that's being led by MTC and the Bay Area Air District, which is a Bay Area Charging Smart Cohort. This is a DOE-funded program that offers free technical assistance and a national recognition program to jurisdictions to help them really increase their electric vehicle charging activities. And so I'm really happy that 3 of our jurisdictions are participating in this inaugural Bay Area cohort. So the city of Santa Rosa, city of Sonoma, and the town of Windsor have staff participating in this cohort. And I think it'll be a great way to bring in some free technical support to the county. And RCPA is planning to work with these 3 jurisdictions to make sure that any lessons learned in our 3 cohort participants can be shared with the rest of the jurisdictions. And then lastly, wanted to mention that BC is participating as part of the county's 2026 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan update to bring a climate perspective into that conversation and make sure that we're plugged into that planning process as it goes forward. So those were the items I wanted to highlight for the climate side, and happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from my colleagues? Director Harvey?
Tanya, how long will the survey be available? I didn't see a date on here.
That's a good question. I don't think we've set an end date. I would say probably for at least 4 weeks, because we're planning to promote at various Earth Day events this month. So
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Tanya, for the report. Appreciate it. Up next is Chris with planning.
Good afternoon, Chair Hopkins and directors. Happy to be here today to provide a brief update on what the planning team's been working on over the last month or so. So starting with our travel demand model, Adam's been working on updating the model base year to 2023 from 2019 and looking at revising our forecast to 2050 and looking at new general plan build out numbers as well. So that's underway. We're also looking at, in addition to the model work, refreshing our travel behavior survey sometime in the next 18 months. So looking forward to that. Moving on to vehicle miles traveled mitigation. We're continuing our work with our consultants from Fair and Peers to develop some staff recommendations for a VMT mitigation and reduction program for Sonoma County. We've held a number of stakeholder workshops and interviews in March to talk about VMT mitigation needs and preferences. The next phase, we're going to be looking at VMT reduction effectiveness of different VMT projects and programs, and working with the consultant to estimate potential revenue that could be routed to VMT reducing projects. Moving on to our community-based transportation plans. So we're just about wrapping up our phase 1 outreach for the South Santa Rosa Avenue and Central Roanoke Park community-based transportation plans. We've been out in the community a lot and been gathering a lot of input on transportation barriers and potential improvements. So the next phase is going to be getting together with a project team, local staff and our project committee to develop a list of potential improvements for each of these study areas, and then taking that information back out to the community to help prioritize it. So moving on to our comprehensive transportation plan, Ross mentioned some of the outreach that we're doing associated with that. We still have our survey open for the CTP that's going to be open through summer. Our draft CTP project list is still live, and we're taking comments and revisions on that through April 30th. So we've received a number of changes from your staff on that list. Moving to our strategic travel demand management plan, in March, a brief public survey was distributed to collect input on community interest in various types of travel demand management strategies. And that those survey results, in addition with feedback from focus groups and the partnership committee that's guiding that project, is going to help inform priorities outlined in that plan. On to bike share, Santa Rosa and Sonoma State University hubs are now live, and we'll be looking at a Santa Rosa Junior College hub sometime in the near future. And then in response to user feedback, a day pass has been implemented as a payment option. So the new day pass is $20 and gives riders 2 hours of ride time each 24-hour period. So that's moving forward. Good to see those bikes out in the field. Onto our transit-oriented community policy. So we're continuing to work with our planning advisory committee and technical advisory committee on that. We've scheduled a joint workshop with the planners and the public works and engineering folks this Thursday. We'll be meeting with MTC to talk about compliance, funding implications, and how to work towards compliance with that policy. Wrapping up with transit and safe routes to school. So on transit integration, a big portion of that work is focused on website integration and bringing the Sonoma County Transit and Petaluma Transit websites into consistency with the work that's already been completed on the Santa Rosa City Bus website. Staff and transit partners are also continuing to refine recommendations for the mascots work, including changes to local services to better connect with regional services. And one recommendation from that project was to reroute Sonoma County Transit Route 2 to stop at the downtown Santa Rosa Smart Station. So that's already been put in place. So some of that is actually being implemented. And then finally, safe routes to school, which we work closely with the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition on this. They're the contractor that's out in the field working with the community on education and encouragement. So over the last few months, they've held pedestrian safety lessons for 2nd and 3rd graders, bike basics lessons for 4th graders, mapping and active transportation lessons for 5th graders, and drive your bike lessons for 7th graders. So a lot of good work out in the community with them. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Chris. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, thank you so much for all of the information. And I think David will round us out with projects and programming.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, directors. Just to give you an update on a few items. On the funding side, as James mentioned earlier, we're working closely with the Federal Highway Administration on our fiscal year 24 Safe Streets and Roads for All grant award. We did receive some somewhat better news recently that they are working on processing it. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to make us take out any references to bicycles or other kind of buzzwords that aren't acceptable to the new administration. On the fiscal year 25 Safe Streets for Roads for All program, the administration recently released a notice of funding opportunity. So we are working on evaluating whether that's worth even pursuing, given our staffing challenges and our local agency partner challenges as well, but there may be an opportunity to look for some more funding. On the planning side, our Margot Kanya Smart team is out in the field this week in Healdsburg, working on the Healdsburg Safe Routes School Plan. So they're looking at school areas for improvements, and that'll help us for the countywide Safe Routes School Plan that we have planned. Also, we are working on our Lakeville Corridor study and working on getting some traffic counts going with our consultant team and scheduling public engagement opportunities. So that'll be happening over the next few months. Related to that, staff is working with Sonoma County PI staff on funding for Lakeville Highway, close to Highway 37. So we have some funding that may be coming to you in the future to going towards that effort. On the construction side, our Hearn Avenue interchange continues to move along. We're coordinating with the contractor, Gelati Construction, Caltrans, and the city to identify ways to accelerate construction. There may be a potential to do a full closure of the overcrossing at some point in May to help facilitate the transition to the new overcrossing. So we're evaluating whether or not that's something that staff wants to recommend moving forward, but we'll keep you apprised of any dates for that. That would potentially allow us to accelerate the demolition of the old overcrossing once traffic's shifted to the new structure and potentially move forward to open all 4 lanes of the new overcrossing by the end of the calendar year. So we'll be continuing to monitor that. On State Route 116, 121, over the weekend, they did shift construction to the new stage 4 to allow construction on the west side of the intersection to continue. They did complete all of the paving and rock work in the center of the roundabout, so that's looking good out there. There was a recent public meeting to get public input on potential improvements to aesthetics in the roundabout in the future, maybe looking at more gateway monument or public art piece. That is being led by Ron Wanger from the Sonoma City Council on partnership with Rebecca Hermancio from the Board of Supervisors. And so we have been coordinating with Caltrans as well to help facilitate that effort, working very closely with the Caltrans landscape architecture team. Related to that, we also had a field meeting last week with the Caltrans landscape architecture team to look at the tree planting we're planning in Paluma along 101, and they'll be having further field meetings next couple of weeks out between Cotati and Windsor. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, David. Any questions? Seeing none, that wraps up our reports. Let's just see if there are any members of the public in person who wish to comment on the reports. Seeing none, is there anyone online who wishes to comment on the report?
Yes, Madam Chair. Tom Conlon. Tom, I have allowed you to speak. You may begin when you unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks. Thanks again. I just note that the weather's been beautiful lately. I hope everyone gets a chance to enjoy riding around in a safe environment on their Patriot-powered liberation vehicles. Thank you.
All right, and then bring it, but anyone else online, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay, any board member comments or announcements, anything fun happening in your jurisdictions? Yeah, Director Loeb.
So April is officially Trash and Fashion Month in the city of Sonoma. If you haven't been to the Trash and Fashion Show, I hate to tell you, it is sold out. It'll be this Saturday, but there is a reception that features all of the various outfits afterwards, and it's really wonderful and very creative. And also the treasure artist of the year is Margaret Hatcher, who was the person who founded the Trash and Fashion idea. And I just invite you to take a look and just Google Trash and Fashion and see some of the amazing designs that have come out of everybody's creative minds. So if you're around in Sonoma in the month of April, also the windows in around the plaza, a lot of the merchants are featuring some of the Trash and Fashion outfits that have been worn over the years.
That's awesome. Love it. Director Giudice?
We have a big announcement. We are finally wrapping up an 18-year-long active transportation plan. And the pathway from Crane Creek Regional Park to Sonoma State University is been approved. As I said, it's been an 18-year project, and it will also include some riparian work along the Copeland Creek and a lot of other little environmental tidbits, and get one step closer to bringing that trail all the way to the Laguna de Santa Rosa. So big thing for us, big lift for us, and we're really excited down in Roanoke Park. So thank you to Regional Parks.
That's awesome. Great news. Anyone else? Going once, going twice, and we are adjourned. Thanks everyone so much.